It is 7:44. Now, many chancellors get called Scrooge by their opponents, but few use the insult on themselves, and even before they've delivered the bad news. But that's what the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has been doing, preparing us for painful financial news on Thursday and admitting that we'll all be paying more in tax. But is there a danger that as the economy heads into recession, too many cuts could choke off any hope of economic growth? Let's speak to David Davis, the former Brexit Secretary. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do you think it's going to be painful, or do you think actually Jeremy Hunt is preparing us, telling us the worst is going to happen and actually it might not be that bad?
Well, no, it's going to be painful. There's little doubt about it. I mean, you heard Rishi Sunak, I think, yesterday also saying that, giving the explanation that they're doing it because they got to appease the financial markets. And we have a particular problem here. It's almost unique to the United Kingdom. Unlike all our competitors, France, Germany, etc., we actually get our homework marked by a third party, by the Office of Budget Responsibility. And we have to actually, as it were, produce an outcome that they think is okay, and the markets look at that. Now, nobody else has that. That's something that was introduced by George Osborne some time ago, and that reinforces the problem. It actually means they've actually got to be, if anything, slightly tougher than they otherwise would be. And that comes at the same time as the Bank of England squeezing the money supply, putting the pressure on to reduce inflation. So those two things together are going to make it very tough. And there is a real risk, and I'm sure the Chancellor understands this, there's a real risk that the combination of the two actually worsen the recession or make it longer.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll be interesting to work out, I suppose, what the effect is, because we've already had one a quarter of negative growth. Obviously, we need another one before we go into recession. So we'll have to look at the figures on that. This is something that we've become very familiar with throughout the chaos of the summer. And I think it's fair to say that it was pretty chaotic. The mini budget, the market's reaction, the transfer of power to yet another prime minister. The problem here, of course, the headline here is that regardless of what has happened, there is still a £58 billion shortfall that we have to make some inroads into. And how else can we do that apart from without resorting to some kind of tax rises, stealth tax rises?
Well, up to a point. I mean, all countries, since John Maynard Keynes, all countries have recognised that when you go into recession, you have, to some extent, have a deficit, and that deficit actually helps moderate the recession. That's not new. So the idea of completely balancing the books is a fallacious one, frankly. What the Chancellor has to do is persuade the markets that the books will balance over a few-year cycle, not over 1 year. And that's where the balancing argument comes. How much is too much? And this is a fine judgment. Look, I don't envy him at all. He's on a complete razor edge with this in making that judgment. And if he gets it wrong, then there'll be a deeper and longer recession than is necessary to correct this. And in fact, we'll collect even fewer taxes because of the recession, and the country will suffer for it. So that's the balancing act. Now, nobody says he can't, he mustn't put taxes up. I don't think anybody's saying that. And nobody says that he mustn't control expenditure. I don't think anybody's saying that. I think maybe the opposition. But the truth is, how much, and if it's the whole 58 billion, bearing in mind, they never know it that accurately. I mean, the truth of the matter is the accounts are corrected even years after the event. But never mind. If it's the whole 58 billion, then it may be too much. That's the real worry.
I'm interested, actually, because the Times has done a very handy guide to the kind of ways that he could raise some money. And I wonder whether any of these appeal to you whatsoever. Extending the energy windfall tax, which is, of course, already being mooted. Is that something that you would support to raise some cash?
Well, I think my hunch is that's almost inevitable, to be honest. The trouble is, it's got real consequences. It's going to drive people away, not just energy companies, going to drive other companies away from investing in Britain. That's the risk of that. But I suspect that's the least pain outcome. That's exactly why Labour is supporting it. So I think it may well be one he puts.
Reducing the help that people are getting with their energy bills. Obviously, that's a 6-month thing, but it looks like it's going to be scaled back. Would you support that?
I think what most people will do with that is look at what the impact is for the poorer half of society. At the moment, the proposals are pretty generous and cover pretty much everybody. I think it may well be that he scales it back for the better off, as it were, later on. It depends how he does it. If the poorest in society are being hit in the medium term, I think people may balk at that a bit.
Okay, David Davis, thank you very much. That is David Davis. He's the former Brexit Secretary.